You're live. You see here is before the change.
Okay. Thank you very much, John. Uh, do you have participants?
No.
Great. Thank you very much, whoever had joined. And this is my very first live stream. So I hope you people will find it useful um, and support me in this journey because I'm a bit nervous because doing it for first time. And feel free to ask the question. I have my friend Win and John with me. So if you have any question, they can tell me and then I can answer them. Because while I'm writing on the paper, mostly I'll be focusing on this, on my writing itself. But feel free to ask the question. This class is mostly for the beginners. And that's what we are aiming for this session. And so everybody who's not even started Spencerian or planning to start Spencerian and maybe in the mid of this Spencerian will find it useful hopefully. And again, feel free to ask the question. Um, we'll see how it goes, and then we'll plan the advanced courses accordingly, maybe intermediate and advanced Spencerian. So again, as I said, it's kind of mostly focused for the beginners. So I'll go on the very basic things. So first of all, Spencer's script. I'm sure you all people love it by seeing all the samples all around, and that's why you love it and you want to get started with this Spencerian. So one of the things is in Spencerian is very much rules driven. If you follow the rules, you will create the beautiful script. And a lot matter to the consistency. So you have to be able to produce same stroke and same kind of letter form consistently. It's not by luck. It's not by one of the chances you get. You should be able to reproduce it every time whenever you write the Spencerian script. And also not single word, you should be able to write complete paragraph, letter, or entire pages itself. So Spencerian, when people start, they get kind of surprised how people write so fast. So I just want to say be cautious. Speed is something you can always achieve. So writing Spencerian is more like learning to drive. So when you drive, you don't go on high speed. You learn the rules. You go slowly. You start understanding how the whole system works, what to do, what not to do, and once you get to when to you learn all these things, then you start speeding up, and then you can pick up and then you can become racer. So that's what you can do with this Spencerian. So in this session, I will focus for beginners. So I will go a bit slow, and first we'll talk about some of the tools, what you need to start with this Spencerian, and then we'll go on the some of the best practices, some basic drill which you need to do every day in order to get your hand used to the dispenser and basically getting your muscle memory kind of it's like how you start your day. You get up and then you do some exercise so you feel good. That's how you, whenever you want to write, you better start with some drills which will help you in writing smoothly. And then we'll talk about some of the basic guide sheets, and then we'll also talk about writing zone where you should write, and then we'll go over the lower and upper cases. So hope we all able to cover this, and again feel free to ask questions. It's advisable to not drink coffee, but I'm a morning person. I cannot do my work without coffee. So I'm taking the coffee. So feel free to take coffee, wine, whatever you have, depending on your time zone. And the best thing is you should enjoy. It's not like some laborious work you're doing. It's you're doing for your own, and it's a journey, and you have to enjoy. So all the best, and let's get started. So Gwyn, if you get any question, just let me know. My friend Gwyn is with me.
Hello everyone.
Great. So let's start with some of the tools which I use. And the basic tool, what you need is the holders. So there are two kind of holders. Can you see? Everybody can see. I need to find the focus in my camera. I'm seeing only one. Okay, yeah. So I'm still trying to adjust with the camera. Okay, great. Thanks, man. Uh, so you have these two kind of holders. One is a straight holder, and this is the straight holder. And this is not advisable for the Spencerian, though you can write Spencer, but mostly it's good for writing the copper plate. And because like naturally like the Spencerian has some specific inclination angle that we'll talk about that while working on the guide sheet. So for Spencerian we use the oblique holder. John, can you help me in the camera? Can people see from my video, not from the, okay. For some strange angle. So I'll just give a pause so that we can get the correct angle. You can zoom out also, that's fine. Okay, this looks good. Yeah, that's better. You can take this one out.
Oh.
Okay, yeah. Because there is some delay in the streaming, so I want to see like what's happening in the real time. So this is the oblique pen holder which we mostly use for Spencerian. You can see like it has like this specific flange which kind of like adjusts the nib on a particular angle. Also, this oblique holder is from the Microsoft. I prefer this one because it's very simple, and most important thing, it's really lightweight. It's kind of like the feather. So when I'm writing, I really don't feel it like I'm holding anything. I focus more on the script rather than like worrying about like how heavy it's spent. So I can write for like whole day. Like I have written like 5-6 hours and I never feel any pain. Also, like when you are holding the pen, you need to make sure like you are holding the right way. So this is the technique to hold the pen. Pretty straightforward, easy. You can go a little bit up depending on how comfortable you. Just make sure you are leaving some space because in Spencerian we make a lot of curved turns. So that time you need like enough space. Otherwise, if you kind of like stuck them together, it's like it will be hard like to rotate them. So give it like 2 mm of gap so that when you're making like a long curve, especially like just to show you how this whole pen rotation things work. So when you're working on this kind of, so now you can see like I'm rotating the pen. So in those scenarios, you need like enough clearance so that you can. And just remember like always like try to keep on cleaning your pen with the water and the tissue paper. So that's about the holder. Preferable is to use the wooden holder. There is a lot of plastic holder, not very comfortable because you cannot adjust the nibs. Also, when you are putting the nib, make sure it's like if you are using the Nicosit, it's coming like almost like 10% out of the flange. The top alignment, depending on the oblique holder, there's a different kind of alignment. But what I prefer with the Michael's pen is like it's aligned with the top edge in the middle, so you can see like it's pretty much aligned here, and that's how I write, and it works well for me. But make sure you have adjusted your holder for the best writing experience. And feel free to ask me more questions. Even you can DM me. I can answer all the questions related to that. I don't use a lot of oblique holder. Probably like this. I have been using from past 3 years. So you don't need like hundreds of pen. You just need to find one good pen which works for you. Also, like now coming back to the nibs. So there is like different kind of nib. I'm sure like you all are aware of, and you must have your favorite nib. The one I prefer is the Nicoji. One of the reason like because I started with this, and also it's like kind of like easily available. It's kind of like solve all my need, and also like I can create like very fine hairline to thick line. It works with all kind of paper. Some people prefer like Leonard principle. That's also very good nib. But I kind of find like sometimes it's like very hard to control, and the way we are, especially when I'm creating the artwork and working on thick paper, so that time I cannot use that. So I kind of prefer the nicotine. It's like the kind of like right stiffness, and it flex well. So especially when I'm talking about the flexing, so you can see. Let me zoom in. So you basically have like these two times, and when you're writing, like then it kind of this opens up, and accordingly you create the shades. So especially like for creating the shades, it's very important. Like you should be able to flex the knee. Yeah. So Gwyn and John, just let me know when I'm out of camera. So we make sure like we are inside the camera. And of course, like you can create the hairline. You can create like different variation of thickness just by controlling the nib. And when I'm talking about the nib, so let's talk about the basic stroke also. Like most of the time, what you need like just few stroke to whether you are doing the copper plate or Spencerian. So one is like you should be able to create the thick line and close it smoothly. If you don't get the sharp head, you can go back and you can clean it and you can make it sharp. And then is one is like this one we use a lot in Spencerian, which is like you are kind of like fixing one times and one end, and only you are making the move the other time. So you are able to split this. Split the whole shade. So for example, like in general, you create the shade like this by this kind of movement. But what if I am able to split this into half? So for that, you need to make sure like you slightly rotate the holder so that you get one tine fixed, and then just you let open the other tine and then close it. With practice, you will get this one, and this is kind of like very important, especially like when you're creating the ovals. You can do with the other side also. Um, so you should be able to control your nib pretty easily to get like desired shape, and then you add on top of that the pen manipulation, so you can create like nice ovals, which is kind of like the basic form in most of the letter forms, whether you're doing the copper plate or Spencerian. The way I start oval is mostly from on the top, from here. So let me get the focus. Start from here, fix one time, and so when you're creating the oval, what you focus is the inside shape is the oval. Shape goes out of the oval shape itself. So that's how you create the shade. And of course, you need ink, and the one I prefer is McAfee ink. It's well known among the penmen, and it's very good ink. Maybe not easily available everywhere. So there is the alternative to this ink. You can try the walnut ink. This is good ink. And then we have Fox and Quill, Iron Throne ink. This is also very nice. And easily available, we have the Higgin Eternal. Some people are using Higgins. Go for the Higgin Eternal ink. It's really good ink. And sometimes just to add the color, I use this vermilion color. I believe it's from the Kuriteke. Yeah, I mean, but any the Sumi also has this same kind of colors. You can try to use that. Do we have any question?
I have lots of comments coming in.
Okay.
Saying hi to you.
So whoever joined, thank you very much. And feel free to ask the question, and I'm very happy to see everyone around. I'm not able to see the comments, so Gwyn is reading comment for me, and also like we are recording the video, so later I'll go through all the comment and I'll reply you guys. But if you have a question, just stop me, because I want to cover most of the things, and we have like very limited time, so I'll keep going. Um, so so I was talking about the Iron Girl ink, this McAfee ink. So one of the problem what we have with this ink, it's get molded if you keep it for a longer time, and that's a nightmare for every calligrapher. So one of my Instagram friend told me like how to prevent it by using this thin plastic paper. Win, what we call this one?
String wrap. You can
Yeah.
use a food wrap.
Yeah, the food wrap or thing wrap. You can cover this, and every time when you're done with this, you can just push it inside the ink, um, and then you can just tightly cover it. This will prevent you from like molding the ink itself. And I have been using this one, and it's working pretty well. So I think like this is working, and finally we got this one. Great. So now we're done with tools. Of course, like the paper. So paper, I'm sure like everyone has find their own favorite paper. There's like tons of paper. You can use any paper. Just make sure like it's not kind of like it's working with your pointer pen ink. It's not feathering and it's not scratching. You should be able to see like very crisp lines. So just to showcase you, I'll show you some of my favorite paper which I use. So I use this Fabriano 90 GSM paper a lot. It's kind of like worked very well with the Spencerian, even for the fluorescing. It's nice paper. It's a bit translucent. You can see underneath, like if you're adding the guide sheet, and also like we have like more paper. Tool Art has printed some nice paper with all the guide sheets, so you can try if you need that also. So paper shouldn't be problem. Like whatever works for you is good paper for you, and also like if you're practicing, you try to reuse the paper because paper is expensive. We have to be like thoughtful because every paper is belong to one tree, so try to maximize the use of the paper wherever it's possible. Especially like if you're doing the drills, you can reuse some of the papers what has been left out from others. So, okay, now I've talked about the tools. Now let's get started with drills. So I just said like as for the healthy life, you need to start your day with exercise. The same way when you are starting writing, before writing at least you need to give like 5-10 minutes to get your muscle to be like kind of like get used to be writing, because usually like you write for hours. So if you just go and it's same thing like even when you go for exercise, you do a bit of stretching and then you start running or whatever the weightlifting you do. Same goes for the writing also. So there is a few basic drills you need to do. Uh, uh, some of you are aware about this book. So this is my flourishing book. This handout. So I'm just taking some reference from here about the drills. So here are some of the drills which I do. So mostly like it's straightforward. So let me quickly show you the drills and especially what you need for the Spencerian. So one of the common drill we do for Spencerian a lot is something we call like the cross drill. So this one I did last night just to show you guys. And so here we focus more on the drill itself. So it's not about like how perfect the letter form you are getting, and you can do with anything. If you are kind of like in somewhere where you cannot access your nib and ink, you can do with the roller pen. Like this one is done with the roller pen, and also like you can see like it goes on. So like even like you can do all kind of like experiment with the drill. You can create a lot of shapes. This is the oval drill, so you can see like just like maximize the use of the paper, and then because they're just like giving the exercise. So let me quickly show some of the drills. And I'll start with cross drill. So cross drill we do for the Spencerian. I have created this guide sheet, and I have uploaded it on the Google Drive. Also, like, I'll ask you to send this guide sheet. So when you're working on Spencerian, you can use this guide sheet. Also, like, the way you can directly practice on this one with the pen or with the nib pen, or you can use one of your paper, which is like kind of like bit translucent, so you can see like what's underneath. And always use the paper clip when you're using the guide sheet so that it can tie up nicely. Yeah. So before showing the guide cross drill, I want to talk about the writing zone and the way I paper hold, and also like the way I sit. So usually, like, from the table, I try to give like 3 to 4 inch space on my body, and you should be like comfortable, because you're not writing for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. You can go for hours. So you should feel comfortable, and you should enjoy it. And also, like, paper is your playground, so you should be able to playground not with your body. Your body is not playground, so your body has like limited capacity, so you should not strain yourself. So let the paper like do all the things for you, paper and pen, and you enjoy. I prefer to keep my paper and pen on the 90-degree angle to my hand, so it's always. So let me zoom out. Okay, so there, yeah. So this is how I write, and always I make sure. So if you're writing like this, and then you make sure like it's on the 90 degree, and I prefer to write this, and also like with one hand I try to hold it so that when I'm writing I can keep moving the paper wherever I need. So I'm not changing my this hand position. I'm not straining my body to move, lean forward or backward. It's mostly the paper is doing for me. And also, as a human, we have like a kind of like it's a limited area. It's like around like 2 to 3 inch where we can stretch writing. So if I'm writing like uh, let's see. So now I have reached my limit. If I do, my letter form will distort if I try to write further. So what I can do, simply I can just pull the paper inside, inward, and then I can continue writing. So that's what you do. Like when you go down, you pull it up. So you're not moving, you're not changing your position. It's always the paper is changing its position. So coming back to the drill, so I'll just show on this small part of it. So it's more about like your making your hand movement, basically the getting used to the arm movement. So you don't have to worry about the letter form at this stage, especially with when you're doing the drills. The whole idea is to so if you see my hand is moving like this, so it's a complete kind of like arm movement. And one other thing with the expansioner, many people say like you should like raise your arm and then you should like try to get the belly fluid. That's good for writing like 1 or 2 letters or word, but you cannot write like entire page because it will start straining. So I keep my hand completely resting on the table itself, and then I enjoy the writing. So even if I'm doing like entire arm movement, but it's resting on my table. Also, there is a combination of different kind of movements. So if you're doing like big letter, for example, if you're doing the letter A, so this involves combination of the wrist movement, pen rotation, and also like bit of the arm movement. And here you see like how the pen is manipulating to get the shade. and some stroke you need to end with the speed, like this kind of like, so this thing cannot be achieved by going slow, so you need to kind of like do the speed thing. Yeah. So that's the cross trail, and of course like you can use different kind of pens. So sometimes like even if you don't have your pointed pen, you can do with any color roller pen. So, and sometimes it's fun like to do with many colors. So it's more about like your hand getting used to the writing. And I said like end result, what you expect is to see like something like this. And if full page, it's if you feel like it's a lot of work, you can break down. Probably you can just do like half page when you start the writing. And if you want to go smaller, you can go smaller, but make sure you're moving the full arm. You're not like trying to rotate your finger or just doing with the wrist, because that's kind of like defeat the whole purpose of this cross trail. And okay, let me change this paper. You can keep track of the time, because yeah, we need to keep on covering everything.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and also like if anybody asks any question, just let me know.
Some of them are watching you from the poolside.
Yeah, I mean it's a fun exercise. Yeah. Great. So yeah, coming back to the other drills, which is not very important for this Spencerian, and mostly I do it for flourishing, but it's good to do them also sometime. But cross drill is definitely very necessary every time you're doing the Spencerian. Other drill, we call it like the push and pull. So basically, like you push. So now I forgot to clean, so you can see like it's not moving smoothly. So make sure you keep on cleaning your nib, because the McCaffrey ink is like a bit acidic, so it can spoil and start getting clotted in your nib very fast. So just keep on cleaning. So let me zoom. Okay, you good? Yeah. So push and pull. So this one is very simple. You push and you pull. So push, pull. But you have to do really like fast. So when you do the fast, you go like this. Try to be the close as possible, like bands. So you might be wondering like why we do this drill, because when you're writing there is like certain letter which will require this a lot. Like anytime you even like big letter, small letter you go, you'll end up like this kind of scenario where you need to kind of retrace, and if there's no practice, then you will kind of create the gap. So this help you in preventing those gaps, especially like when you're doing the retrace at any level, even for the lowercase. So you can see like it's pretty much everywhere. The other drill, what we do is called the oval drill. You must be familiar. This is a lot of fun. So I try to create this two line, usually like kind of like 10 mm apart. You can go bigger depending on how comfortable you are. And this is like you have to have like the full freedom of movement of the arm, and then you make some stroke in the air to get the feel of it, and then you just go and then keep doing it. Try to get as dense as possible. You can do this also with the pencil or the pen, the roller pen. But the idea is to get like how fine hairline you can get. So don't apply any pressure. It's just like your hand is gliding on the paper. Should be like the super smooth. And believe me, this is like a lot of fun, therapeutic. Sometimes like even like when I'm meeting, getting bored, I just do this with the pencil. So just enjoy. And again, this happening with the arm, so I'm not doing like with this kind of rotation. I'm doing more like with the full arm. So if you're doing it, how you know like you're doing it's lighter, because then you can see you can go longer. Like I was able to do like this entire stretch just with one time ink dip. But if you do like kind of like you're applying the pressure, then it will get like it get a lot darker. Also, like you can feel it from the back side, like you can touch it. If it's like rough, that means you are applying a lot of pressure. You should not apply any kind of pressure. It should be like light feather. Um, yeah, it's the same. And there's like you can do like a lot of artwork with actually this one. Like if you search, there's like a lot of great penman who have done like a lot of great amazing work, like going into different patterns. So like if you just create any shape and then inside that you should be able to do. And this kind of help you in maintaining the variation of the size. Yeah, so you can see like you can create like a lot of interesting shapes and even like flower design, lamps, so all kind of design you can do just with the cross stitch to make it like more engaging and fun. So another we do like to play on the demo is like hourglass. It's like number making like number 8, so it's more like this. So this helps a lot like in practicing in all direction. You can do this horizontal also. And again, you don't need the point and pen to do this. This is all like the movement practice. So you should be able to do using any kind of pencil or a roller pen. If you want to go a bit complex, you can define like how complex you want to make it. But the idea is you should be able to do it, and then you should be able to speed up the whole thing. Yeah. So that's the drills. So make sure like every time you're starting with the drill, even if you're doing just for 5 minutes before writing. It's you're doing the stretching before you're running, so it will always help you get started. So for any question, Gwen? Okay, good.
Everyone is just saying hi to me.
Hello everyone. Yeah, so I'm glad. Like I'm trying to keep it like the basic and fundamentals, like for the beginners. So hope like everybody is getting it. And now let's proceed to the further like actual writing. But before that, I wanted to quickly talk about the guide sheet. So I have prepared my own guide sheet. Um, so this is the guide sheet. So this is the 3 mm, and so how it works. Let me change this. So remember the best practices. Best practices. It takes some time, but you'll get the result in long term, because sometimes we feel like all these are not necessary. I can just start. I can take paper and I can start writing. But then it's kind of like getting into the bad habit. But if you follow this simple step, it will help you a lot. Like especially like how to use the guideline. Even like simple thing like clipping it. Uh, and you'll see all the improvement over the time when you're writing the Spencerian, because I said like Spencerian is very much rule driven, and when writing the Spencerian, you should be able to explain every curve, like why you did, what was the reason, was it consistency, it was balance. So uh, you should be able to explain your writing if somebody asks like why you did this curve. So about the guide sheet, so basically like it's the same kind of guide sheet if you have used for the copper plate. So you have the X height. For example, here it's a 3 mm. Uh, and then you have the ascender height, and then you have the descender height. So for my writing, like I prefer to use like 2x ascender and 2x descender. So this will become 6 mm and 6 mm. Sometimes like if you want to write like later, you want to go a bit kind of like want to add more content, so maybe you can use like 1.5 times. So this will become like 4.5 ascender and 4 point descender. Then the lettering will be like more condensed. So it's up to you, like how you like. I usually prefer to like people should be able to read whatever I've written. Also, like I try to write a bit bigger so that when people get my letter, they should be able to read like what I have written in the letter. So that's why I try to avoid writing like very small or like also like the hairline in Spencerian, like we love the hairline, but if something you cannot see, cannot read, then it defeats the purpose. For your own practice, it's good, but if you're writing in later to somebody, he should be able to read it. It should be like legible enough. So I try to make my hairline look visible, and that's so another reason for using the Nikosi. So let's talk about the angle. So the main angle what we have in Spencerian is it's a 52 degree, uh, and also we have another angle which is kind of go with this writing. It's a 30 degree. So just to demonstrate like how this works together. So if you have like letter I, so this is the main writing angle. So this is 52 degree. Let me zoom in. Yeah. And then we have like accompanying angle. So this is like 30 degree. So it's basically the combination of both the angles. So any letter you write, it will follow the same. I'll try to write big so that you can see. So you can see it's kind of like combination of both the angles. So you have made this angle, and then you have all the following 30 degree angle. One thing is very important when you're writing is the consistency, the spacing of the letter. It should be like equal throughout. So if I write it just for the demo purpose, I will be writing big so that you can see it clearly. So I've got my writing zone, and then I go. Now I'm feeling like I'm going out of my writing zone. I cannot write. So the moment I see, like if I continue, it will distort. So I should be able to pull it, and then I can continue writing. So that's okay to stop if you cannot write. Yeah, and then of course, so you can see like you should be able to do yourself. So you can see like where you're going off. Like here you can see like it's gone a bit off. So make sure like it's not going that. So this is wrong. Like it should be like equal. So because I'm writing very big, so I was not able to control. But make sure when you're writing, you should do this red pen so that you can see like everything is like equal. So all x. Wherever you see it's getting like 2x or 1.5x, that's where you're breaking, and you need to come back and practice it. And of course, like if you see all the angle, it's consistent. There should be always. So that's the advantage of using the guide sheet. Like now I'm pretty much like I've been writing for years, so I'm got used to the angle. I don't need much of, but anybody who is starting from the beginning, it's highly recommended to use the guide sheet with the angle. That will help you a lot. Okay, so we are done with the guide sheet, and then let's talk about the basic curve for the Spencerian. So okay, you can see. So of course we have like the lot of hairline. So this is the straight line. So you go upward to create the hairline, and then we have something we call in Spencerian is the overcurve. Why we call overcurve? Because it's because of its shape, so it goes like this. So this is the overcurve. Should be this is mostly used for the entrance. So if I'm writing any letter, I can use this overcurve. And then we have undercurve, which is kind of a reverse of the overcurve. And you'll see a lot of like the exit stroke, they use this undercurve. And then we have clean my hand. Right, and then we have, of course, we have the oval. It's the same way. Oval with shade, so you can add the shade as we talked earlier, like how to create the oval with shade. And then we have something is not exactly like the oval. It's kind of like angular oval, what we call sometimes. So this is very important to understand, like how this curve, the shape itself has been created. So if you notice, it's not like this. So it's not like this, like where you're cutting the oval half. This, if you cut it, you'll still get. So basically, it's like combination of two different sizes of the oval. And you have to pay attention to this one because you'll be using this a lot in Spencerian, both in lowercase and capital case. And yeah, that's kind of like the base. So make sure like you are not creating the full oval, you are not creating the sharp oval, and when you're going back, you're using the curve to close it back like smoothly. It shouldn't be like too much of curve, so you cannot do it, then it will become the oval. It shouldn't be like very sharp, otherwise it will look odd, not the intended shape. And yeah, that's how you create. Another curve we get a lot is called like the compound curve. So something like this. So if you write this like this, so you kind of like it's a combination of two ovals. So just to explain, I'll do it again. And you should be able to draw the oval inside this. So that's how you create the compound curve, and you should be able to do it like really quick. You don't have to do it fast, but every time able to reproduce the same, because especially like you'll be using it for letter T a lot, and a lot in the capital letters. So if I do like letter T, and then you need to create this, and also like when you're doing the big letters, then also you need to use this. Okay, so those were some basic curve you need to practice. So let's get to the actual writing, the lowercase. So I got my paper and then I clip it. So lowercase. So there is like groups, but just for easy to understand, I'll go from A to Z rather than like getting into short letter and extended letter and loop letter. So it will be easier to follow. So let's start with letter A. So the way you do letter A is, okay. Let me zoom in. Can you see my paper?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want to zoom in?
I think it's fine. You can see. Yeah. Just remind me like if I'm going out of paper.
Okay, sure.
So you
Sounds
create
good.
over curve and then the something like this. So let me show it's like big. So you create a big over curve and then you come back and then you create the angular oval and then you close it. So this is the shape. This you should be able to practice a lot and able to do this constantly. Also, like if you notice like the shade, the higher the shade is the better. So when you're making the shade, when you're coming back and you're retracing and then you're creating the shade and then you're ending it very sharp and smooth and then you're going back like this, and then the you can go and you can create the exit stroke. Come back, retrace. Let me draw it again. So you start with over curve, go retrace, get the setting, go down, take turn, make it curve, not like very sharp, retrace a bit, and then you create undercut. So that's how you write the letter A. You just follow, and you can see like this part is pretty straight on the top. Sorry. And this you should be able to reproduce everything every time, and then you can just go. Okay, sorry, it's out of paper. Yeah. Let me zoom out. Yeah, good. And then you can connect to the next letter. We'll talk about the connection in other sessions because in this we are just starting, so connections can be tricky, and how to write the composition writing and how to check it. Also, we'll talk later, but let's focus on the lowercase. So that's letter A. Win, do you have any question for any letter?
No.
Looks like everyone is getting it. So that's good. Like less question is better. Like then we can finish it on time. Now, so just make sure like your nib is clean. Otherwise, you'll get trouble in getting the hairlines. So letter B. So same way you start with the hairline, you go up, and here you create a loop. So this is important to understand how you create the loop. So you go under curve, you go all the way up, and then you come down. So mostly it's a hairline. One thing remember, like in Spencerian, you don't need to create a lot of shade. Even like letter A, you can simply just create whole thing with just the hairline and to look good. Shade is more for the decoration in Spencerian. So coming back to letter B, you start, you go up, you create the loop, come down, and you finish the letter like this. And if you want to add the shade in this, if you are a fan of the shade, you can add very little shade here. About this shade, and this top shape. So just remember like what happening there. When I'm going here, I'm taking the kind of like the sharp but not very sharp, so it's not like this kind of, it's always a smooth kind of turn. So make sure like that is smoothness in all the turns is there. So even like the lower you can see, uh, everywhere it stays smooth. So we try to avoid like the sharp angle curves in the Spencerian. So it's always smooth. So you go up, let me make like really big, come down, go here, and then so let's talk about this shape. So this shape is basically like when you come here, you kind of like retrace with the strokes, you get like small dot. Uh, if I can make it like bigger, so it's more like this kind of, and then you fill it inside, something like this. So it's a one-sided, but you do it in one stroke, and then you make this going the curve outside, something like this. Thanks, Green. So that's letter B. Um, just looking at time, I'm going fast so that we can cover at least the lowercase in today's session. Letter C. Letter C, very straightforward. You can start with undercurve. You can come here. You can stop. Oh, sorry, yeah. So entrance curve, come here, stop, and then by mental judgment, you need to find out like what is the spot where you need to start for your C letter. So this is the oval. Yeah. So shape itself is like same as what we did earlier, like going and retracing. And if you cannot calculate the distance, you can always write the letter C, and then you can come back and you can add the entrance stroke. There's no harm in that. So that's letter C. Just one more time to show you. So you find a spot where you want to start. You go down, create this little tick, and then you come up, create the shade like what you do over, and then you end with exit stroke, like a smooth. So everything should be smooth, no sharp curve. Anytime if I create something like this and then I do like this, it's wrong. It changes the whole letter form itself. So try to avoid those kind of mistake. Letter D, same as letter A, it's pretty close. Okay, I'll just pull it so that you can see. I'll do small like the actual size, and then also with the big one. So you make the basic form the letter A, and then you need to create something which we call like this, kind of like this stroke, and then you can come back and you can adjust it to make it like sharp. There is a different way to create it. Like many times, like I prefer to create like quick stroke if you can get it. So if I create like letter D, and then I can do, and then I can go and finish it. So I get like really sharp one, but that needs some practice. So if you want to do slow, just make sure like you're coming back and then you're getting the sharp, and then you're going back and finishing the touches. Let's see the bigger size of it. So you start pretty much same as the letter A. If you want, you can add, say, very little, not needed, but looks good sometimes. Close it, come here. It should be like almost like the same size of that. Slightly larger, you can, if you want to make, you can make it like the taller, but make sure like come here and then something like this, and then you can, if you want to retouch, you can do that. But I'm doing on the bigger, probably like on the smaller size, you will not get all those, so that you can clean all this. So it's mostly like what happens, like when this angle you are creating, your nib is like this, and then you get this shape. So you need to go back and then square the top, so that you can make nice top edge. And of course you can come back and then you can exit the stroke. Um, this is just one. There is like different version of letter D. There's like, so you can find your whatever you like. You can use that kind of D. Sometime like, especially when you're ending the word, you can use something like this. So that's also fine. You want to make it more fancy, you can something like this. You can do. Letter E is pretty much like letter C. It's just that they start with the entrance curve. So you can go down, you can create. Is it visible? Yeah. So start with the entrance curve. You make the sharp with a smooth turn. If you want to add shade, you can add, and then that's how you do the E. If you don't want, you can just. So if you remember, this is the loop what we had when we created letter B. So it's kind of same kind of loop on the top. It's just that it's a little bit more curved, the shape itself, so it's not coming like straight. And that you can achieve with shade, or if you're just doing the hairline, make sure like you're doing very tight curve over there. Yeah, also like in a small, like, though it's very hard to see it, but you should be able to zoom it and see it like what we've done, rather than making like this, like this. That's wrong. So that's letter E. I clean my nib. Letter F. There's many ways to create the letter F, but let's start with like the basic one, which is kind of following the letter D, but rather than on top in descender, we'll do it in the rather than ascender, we'll do in the descender. So let's start with the simple letter F. So this is same loop what we created for letter B. So we stopped here, and now in this case, we'll just go and start increasing the pressure so we can get. So this should be like short height. It shouldn't be like, so if this is my ascender and this is my descender, so it should end before this. There should be gap. It should not touch, and then you can go and then you can create this and you can finish so that you can give the exit stroke. So how to see it on the big? Same as letter B. Come down and finish it, and then you add the exit stroke. Straight, simple. And let's see some interesting variation of letter F. So you go same way, come here. This is one of the variation. So here is the tricky part. So if you see like this line, here is the curve I use. It's one side only. So this curve is this. So if it's like half portion of the set. So it's not like set is going both sides. So this side is still not drawn, like when doing this kind of bottom. Now letter G. So letter G is exactly like letter A, the starting part. You go, retrace, create the letter A, close the loop. So this is our letter A. Continue with the letter A. So this is what, so rather than going to the exit stroke, you can come down further and you can do like letter F. but then this will be look like letter Q. This is not letter G. So for if you want to make it like letter G, following the same, you have to change this a little bit. You can go and then you can add little bit curve. So this becomes Z, but if you add like this, then it will become letter Q. So make sure like what's the difference between letter G and letter Q when you're writing this one. And if you see like other variation, what you can do is like you can create the loop. So it's very important like when you're creating these kind of sets. So now you can see in this case it's again one-sided only, but this side I'm keeping this side empty, whereas in this letter F it was empty on the other side. So these are like a small simple principle. If you keep it in mind, you should be able to constantly reproduce this. And this will become like over the time your muscle memory. You don't need to remember like which side you need to create and how the shape should look. You should be like able to create this without even thinking. So that's letter G, and now let's see the letter H. So again going back to same letter B, you create the entrance loop. So pretty much same, it's just that we did not add the curve over here. In B we kind of add the curve here and then go back and create this shape. So here I kind of stopped here and come here, and now here you can do retracing and you can go back and add this curve, which is basically letter I. So we haven't talked about letter I. So letter I is like the basic Spencerian, kind of like the, you can say like the basic atom of writing. So this is what happened with the letter I. And if you kind of like reverse this one, this is what this shape you will get, which is more like letter N. So let's come back to letter H again. So let me write it like big. So you create the loop. So remember the loop, it should be smooth. It cannot be like sharp. So this has to be like very smooth. And then you start here without like almost no retracing here at the end. It should be like touching, but it should not like go like this and create like this. So it's more like and then sharp, exit from there, and then you're coming. If you want to add shade, you can add shade. So see the difference between these two. So here you have the angle, which is like very sharp, but here you have the turn. So different between the angle and then the turn. And then also like when you do the tracing is something like this, which is like kind of overlapping the curve itself. So these are like a small thing, but they will make like a lot of difference in your writing. So make sure like when you're writing, pay attention to all these small details. So GHI. So just now I talked about the letter I. So this is like the basic atom of the Spencerian writing. You start with undercurve, and then you come and then you do slide on top. It can retrace a bit, and then you can do like exit stroke. So it's combination a straight line, undercurve, and then again undercurve, and this is easiest one. You need to master this one, especially like when you're doing uh, cross drill. You will be using a lot of this one. Like you can do quickly a lot of cross drill with the letter I, and this will help you in like getting your muscle memory before you start writing. So that's the letter I. Let me write big.
You have a question from someone?
Yeah.
Is shading optional for all small letters?
Yes, shading is optional for all the small letter. Um, Let me think. Yeah, actually, it's optional for all the letters, like except this extended head, like where you have like this kind of letter form, because this itself comes with the shading. So this need to be done with shading. You cannot write letter D something like uh, yeah, just like this. It will not make sense. So you need to add the shade. The loops like letter G, like this kind of still you can make without setting and they will be fine. But this is the exception, like you must need the shade for this one. If you don't want to use the shade for the letter D, you have to use the other one. But again, remember this one you use in the word and it's not like in the middle of, so you cannot say like, uh, do you have any word with D in the middle?
Dance.
Dance. Yeah, so even like dance, so if I want to write like, I cannot use this one because then I cannot connect it. It looks kind of odd.
So the
Sorry.
answer is
Yeah.
yes, it's optional. Yes.
It's optional, but you must need for letter D and letter T if you are using those short um, height. This the main stem. So even for letter T also you need. So for most of the letter it's optional except letter D and T.
Letter D and
D and T. So, of course, like getting back to like if I want to write dance, so let's write it. So the
sorry, I'm not D and
T,
T for Thailand T.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
So I have to use this one. I cannot use any other one. So I'll change my paper, and we are done with PHI. So just now we talked about letter I, so I'll just rewrite it letter I, and then this is your letter I, and of course you need the dot. And if I use the same letter I and then I extend it and go down in the descender and then I add the loop, then I'll get the letter J. Again, like I said, like the shade is optional here, so you don't need to add the shade until you want to make it like look a little bit fancier. Then only you need to add the shade. And sometimes because you write like a whole paragraph, entire page, too much of the shade can be like very distracting. So, and it may will not look very nice and clean. So it's better to avoid the shade, especially in the lowercase, because of course like all the uppercase will be having like the heavy shading. There's another way to finish the letter I. I think my nibs got some paper, so I need to clean it. So pay attention to the nib also. If it's pull out some fiber from the paper, you make sure like it's clean. Otherwise, you will not get the clean hairlines. So if I'm putting another version of letter J, I go and then I can just add a little bit shade here, something like this. If you write on the small, it will be like this. So basically, it's kind of fast stroke so that you can end and you can get very smooth at the end. So make sure it's you are ending it like very fast. Otherwise, if you try to draw it, you create something like a bit messy. It won't come so smooth. So it has to be like very fast. And the dot. Letter K. Okay. So letter K, same like letter B. You start, go up, create the loop. And now here you create some interesting shape which is like very unique to the letter K. The shape itself starts from here and goes up, and then this is the x height. It's divided into two parts and then goes like this, like kind of like look like letter R, the capital letter R. So if I'm writing like a small, so it's hard to see, but if you zoom in, you can see all the details. So how it has been created, so we are pretty good with the loop. So it's the same loop what we have done. And then when, let's see, this is my x height, I go from here, same like the sharp angle, and create this shape. You can add the shade if you want. If not, because it's so small already, the x height is divided into two parts, and then like this, and then you create the exit. Something like this. And you should be able to create this, uh, able to reproduce every time when you're writing. So, I mean, this is what I practice. Some places you see all kind of funny letter K. Um, I mean, different penmen they created their own version, but this is like the most common one, and I prefer to do this one too, because then if you're using the same one and it's kind of like consistent throughout, and it's kind of like quite visible. So that's the letter K. Yeah, also we are running out of time. We just left 15 minutes, so I'll go fast. I'll try to finish lowercase letter, and based on your response, we'll try to see like whether you need uppercase. Then we'll arrange the uppercase and further. So let's quickly finish the lowercase. K, L is pretty straightforward. It's the same thing like what we did with the B. It's just that it's end up with exit letter.
Well, we have a question from Fiona.
Mm-hmm.
She asks for the double letter. Should shading only be for the first one or the latter one? Which format should we pick to use? Any specific rule?
Double letter like
double small letter.
Like can you give me example?
Maybe a TT, or TT,
Okay.
maybe a TT.
It's depend on the like T and D. You cannot do that. So for example, like if I do the mat, so both has to be like T is like very tied up with the letter form itself. Oh, sorry, you cannot see. So both has to be the same. For the consistency sake, it's better to use like the same. So if you're like shading in the whole letter, so you have to make sure like you are shading.
So do you shade the first letter or both letter or the second letter?
For the like example like TT.
Double small letter.
So as I said, like it's depend on what letter you're writing. Like the TT, it's a compulsory, so you need to create it. So that the shape itself is like with the shade. But the example like you are writing like double letter, what could be like, for example, like A. So you don't want to write like one like this will look a bit kind of odd because it's the same letter. So it's follow the consistency. If you added the shade, make sure you're adding the same shade because it's like consistent letter form. Even like the words like the minimum. So if you add like shade in like letter M, so moving forward, you can skip the N, but next time you get the M, then you make sure you shade it. So it's all about the consistency, especially like in a word, if you're writing, you make sure like you're following the same, so that even like when we do the letter G, so if in the same word we are like G, if I'm getting like the gang, so try to use the same for the consistency. I cannot use like other kind of G. I can, of course, I can use it's a creative freedom, but it will look kind of odd. Like in the same word, you are using two different kind of letters. So try to avoid like creating confusion around the letter form, and be consistent. I hope I answered you. So get back to quickly L M. So M especially like very interesting letter form, and you need to pay attention to the some of the curve over here. So this is letter M. Okay, and if you see on the big size, so you start with over curve, you come down, same as I, and you stop here, and then you go again up, and then if you want to add shade. So one thing you need to really like focus is this curve, and this need a bit of practice, and maybe like a lot of practice, so that you should be able to reproduce it every time. You cannot create this letter like this or this. This is wrong. Like getting all the sharp like the sharp, that will be wrong. So make sure like you are paying attention every time you are making letter M, and so these curve on the top, it has to be always like very smooth curve. Okay, let me.
And
Okay.
we have another question from Liana.
Yeah.
She asks, shading is a must for lowercase d, t, f, and q.
So there is a variation of, I said like few variation doesn't need the shading, but if you are creating the T like one with very common, yeah. So as I said, like letter T, if you are using this, so this is like in the letter form itself is had the T, and same for the D also. Like if you are using this kind of T and D, which you will be using most commonly, because the other T what we have, it's more like the alternative. Like example like this T, you cannot use this T in the middle. It has to go into in the end. So in that case, you don't need setting, but again, you cannot use in the middle. Same goes for the D. For the loops, like the bottom loops, like the G, Q, you don't need to add the shade. So I can write like the Q, sorry, G like this. I can write the Q like, yeah. Shadings are always optional, except I said like they are part of the letter form itself, like T and
D,
G.
T, F, and Q.
F also, like you can skip the shading. Like if you are creating like with the loops, you don't need to do that. You can just simply create like this. But if you are using the other letter form, then you need to. And sometimes like shading looks good. Like if you have done like very light. So if I want to do the shading in letter F, you don't have to do like this. It has to be like really light. Uh, and also like our writing size is like very small for this Spencerian. I think I need to clean this. So now sometimes like the ink start getting like get some grains, so you need to make sure like the grains are not catching up. You can clean from the ink itself using tissue paper or something. Make sure while writing nothing is there in your nib. The letter Q. So Q also, like I said, like you can write with the loop like this. You don't need shade. If you want to add shade, you can have like very light shade. So lowercase lighter shade is like the better shade. So even like when this extended, we are making this stroke, it has to be like lighter. You cannot like, sometimes you see like some people create like very thick. This can be like when you're writing the whole page or paragraph, these can be like very distracting, because in the whole page you'll see all these thick shades. The only shade you should be able to notice is like the uppercase, like when you're writing the capital letters. And of course like T and D, if those letters are used. And they also should be like very light. So even like the T, if I make it like like something like this, it's very heavy. It has to be like very light, like something like this, very light. M, yeah. So coming back to the N now, N is pretty much same. So again, like remember on the top it's curved. It's not sharp. I don't know what's happening. The ink is not flowing. Okay, got it. So these curves are very important, and also like here is this is what shape you should be getting. O again, like start with over curve, and then you create like this kind of a skinny oval, and then do like this. Now letter P, so letter P also like you can go what we did with letter F, we can do like that, uh, and then we can create this letter form, or we can do another variation is like we can do. So these are some of the variations. Always make sure like you come back and clean. But I'll show you like very interesting letter form for the P, which is make the whole letter look very interesting. Yeah. So this is my X height. So you can see like it goes a little bit up, and then it takes the entire descended height. And most important thing about this letter is like when you're creating this is in line. The shade is again like one side only, and then you create this inside shade. So how you create this? Let me show it again. You go up, come down, bit of retrace, and then you create one side shade. Go it, not touching it closely, and then you create this form, and then the exit stroke. So that's the letter P. See, if I draw the line, I should be able to see like nothing is going out of the line. This whole thing, the shade is like in this side only. P, Q, yeah, Q already we talked about it, but let me show it again. So one with short stem. So this is Q, you can add the exit, but if you want to make it look interesting, you can make with the loop. And then you can go and add the exits. So every time you create this loop, make sure if you're adding the shade, you're adding to one side, not to the both side. Also, like if you don't want to add shade, it's perfectly fine. You can create like, yeah, R, letter R. So sorry about like going fast. We just left out with 5 minutes, but we can extend extra 5 minutes. Yeah. Letter R. So let me break down this letter. So you start with, okay, it's in focus. So I start with under curve, you go up. So if this is my X height, I go slightly up. And then here I kind of make this loop, which is like filled in loop. So now I'm drawing it, but actually like when you do it, you will not notice this. It will happen by applying the pressure on the top. And then after that you need to create the connection here. This is like very short connection here, and then follow the same, and then you come down. So if you see how it has been created, it's more like in one stroke.
Off screen. Off screen.
Is it? I can see. Is it fine?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So that's letter R. So make sure like you're going bit above the X height itself. You're not like trying to tuck in the entire letter inside, because inside it will be like so tiny that it won't be visible. So R has to go a little bit up to the X height, take the turn, and then create the bridge, and then create. The whole letter itself looks a bit skinny, but that's how you create. Now the letter S. So under curve, go a little bit up, retrace, come back, and that's how you end. So let me show the bigger version of it. So create under curve. If this is my X height, I'll go a bit up, follow, then retrace, and then here I make some interesting curve. Again, the shade is optional, so if I want to create, it's totally fine. I can come and add. So this curve is more like something like this. That's kind of like a special curve for letter S only. And also R and S, these two are like exception. They go slightly up above the X height. Of course, like T also goes, but that goes halfway. This one goes like very slightly, not like halfway. So if you're writing like ST, so S will be like this, and then your T will be like this. Yeah. So let me change the paper quickly. We are getting closer. Now we covered, yes. Yeah. I hope so far everyone is following and finding it useful.
I was thinking, because you put the paper over the guide sheets and then on screen is you can't see the X height, the lines.
Okay.
Maybe you could draw the two lines.
Sure. I mean, we can. I mean, of course, like if you have any feedback to how to improve this, just give the feedback so that we can. Because I can see my guide sheet as Gwen said. Yeah. Yeah. So you have the one with the guide sheet. Yeah. So let me use one of the paper from the Gwen's notepad from the toolbar. Yeah, this one has clear. So yeah, let's try this. We are on which letter? Okay. Letter S. Okay. So this is our X height. So if you want to write this kind of guides, it's perfectly fine. You can print, or you can use the pad, and then you can practice on this one. So again, like if you want to see the big, so you go create like this, and now letter T. So if you want to create letter T, you have been already creating a lot of T. Either you can do or you can do fast. So fast, it has to be like tick, and this need like bit of practice so that you should be able to find like the right space or the space, and you can continue from there. So yeah, after few practice you will get it. Otherwise, if you're not comfortable, you can just go and you can draw it. Make sure like when you're doing this, uh, you start with like flexing the nib, and then when you come down, you can start reducing the pressure. So you will end up like something like this sharp, and then you can go back and you can touch the top and make it a square. So that's letter T, and as we earlier talked about the compound curve, so you can just add compound curve on top of it. Make sure it's very close. You don't need to create the compound curve somewhere in the space. It has to be look like part of the letter T itself. Now letter U. So that's so simple. You can create. So under curve, you come, no need to create the shade if you don't want. And basically this letter I, so there are two letter I and then they together they create the letter U. So you come here, if you want to add the shade, you can add the shade, and then you can, yeah, this is important to keep because this one went very wide, like 2x, this would be like not too close but not too far also. So that's letter U. uh, Letter V, also you can undercurve, you can come and then you can, I hope it's visible. So you can come here. Here I'm making a slightly different connection. So rather than like you can, of course you can do, and you can create like I and then you can go back and then you can make the V. But sometimes like I just like to make it like more graceful, so I can do it like, so that's the letter V. Just make sure like again this should look like bit skinny. You don't want to make it, and also like when it's going, it's kind of like curls inside, it goes inside and then it goes like it's not too much inside but not too much outside. You don't want to make this hole to go like this. It should be like slightly going inward so that you can get kind of like the parallel shape feeling like this. So that's the letter V. And then the same you can extend, so if you create letter U, if you want you can add the shade, optional. And then pretty much like V. Just notice like when you're creating shade in one letter, you cannot have like the two shades same as letter M and W. So I cannot go and then I can do like this and then I can do like this. That will be like totally disaster. So make sure like one shade per lowercase. Like if you want, like better not to have, but if you want, you like it, you are free to do that, but not more than one shade. Letter X, kind of it's letter I, but here it's like I like to make it like rather than like it's give some curve over there and then straight line and then this, and then you can create another under curve crossing in this middle, so that forms the letter X. Shading is optional, you can shade it if you want.
Amma, you have a question
Sure.
from I can't pronounce his name. Anyway, he wants you to, after you complete your demo, could you show a sample of the speed that they need to maintain while writing an entire sentence?
Okay, I'll write one sentence, yeah, sure. Just X and then Y, same as like you start with letter U, you can create the loop. It's better not to create the shade here with the Y, again if you want to make it graceful. But again, like if you want, you can add that, there's no harm in that, but make sure it's very light. You can follow other variation to end this letter Y. So again, like start with U. If you have added shade here, better avoid on the bottom. As I said, like make the rule like one shade per letter. Oh, so we are at the last letter. So letter Z, start with overcurve and then make the loop. So if I make it like big, just notice here what I'm doing. So this is the top, and I have to like go in the top itself and then make the bottom loop, something like this. So if I blow up this part, so if let's say like this is my X height, and if I want to add the shade, that's fine, but it has to above the X, the base of the X height, and then I turn here on top itself, and then I add the loop. And of course, you can do all the fancy stuff. So that's A to Z. We covered like all the letters, lowercase. So also like the whole sentence, and there's a lot of panagram you can search on the internet. Yeah, I mean that's the one I like, the lazy, the quick round fox. Yeah, but there is like whole page we can send you for practice. Just you can do them. Oh, sorry, I don't need to take out still. I need to write. So let's write in the real size. So this first stroke should be like with the speed, and of course I'm writing T, so it has to be speed, and then you continue writing, and then you come back. So remember, like you have to be like comfortable while writing. It doesn't matter like you need to move paper how many times. One more thing, when you're writing T and H together, make sure like H height is like the loop height is above the T. Otherwise, like it's in both the compound curve will be touching on top of it. So you should avoid that. So if you see like pretty much like I try to use like same curve everywhere so that it look consistent. Of course, some places I have to do different, like the Q, F. I cannot use like the same kind of curve, but it has to be like consistent throughout. That's like usually my normal speed. I don't go like crazy with the speed, but I enjoy writing. I take my time. So yeah.
Is it okay that you write one more sentence so that they can see it in full view? Because just now you were zooming.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll write on this so it's much more clear. Let's see. You want me to write big or on the same height? X height on the same or bigger?
Yeah, I think the same is fine.
Okay. This clean?
And we have a question from Maria. She says that she missed the beginning, and she wants to know if the live will be available afterwards. So maybe you could tell them.
Yeah, so we have the recording, and we'll email everybody with the link.
So they can view it publicly on the channel.
Sorry?
They can view it on the channel publicly.
Yeah, so we are making this video free on our YouTube channel, so you can always watch. It will be always there, and you can always write to Toolart and myself, like if you have any problem in accessing. So let's go with on complete sentence writing. I will start with capital letter, just for fun. So this is the vertical stem we use a lot in Spencerian. We can talk about this in our next session. And then you have So exit stroke, you make sure like you are kind of ending with the speed, otherwise you'll not get like very nice and smooth one. Yeah. Also, I got some of my writing sample, which I wanted to show, like how you should be able to write, like if you practice Spencerian. Um, like some of the sheets. Okay, so this is how I practice. Like this is like when I started practicing letter M. So this is like sentence itself is like uh, minimum 9 men were mining in mines. So it's a lot of M and N. So you can find like this kind of interesting sentences where you have like a repeated word and you can keep practicing them. So you can see like yeah, so you can see like all like, so I was like trying to get like as much as consistency I can get. So that's one exercise. There's a lot of like capital which we'll talk about in next session. Um, but ultimately you should be able to get this kind of later when you're writing the Spencerian. Yeah, so you can should be able to write like the full letter and people should be able to read it. It's not like something which you are like nobody can read it, like it's pretty legible. So you should strive for the hairline, like of course you need to get that, but make sure also like people should be able to read it. More sample. Yeah, so thank you very much for watching and joining this live stream. I hope you find it useful, and thank you very much for all the love. I hope you're staying safe, stay safe inside, keep practicing calligraphy, and this is time we need to support each other. And thank you very much. Have a wonderful weekend. We're good, man?
Yep.
So you want to end now?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead for 22.